The United States men are back. Oh, poised to avenge or assemble and face our neighbours to the north. Yes, we're about to relitigate the War of 1812. And that one ended in the draw, aka the signing of the Treaty of Ghent in 1814. Well, for 90 minutes on Saturday, we're going to play as if the Treaty of Ghent itself is up for grabs, baby. But we're not just playing Canada. We're playing a Canada under the leadership of Wisconsin's finest, Mr. Jesse Marsch, a man who only just led them to the semi-finals of the Copa. What? A Copa at which, did this really happen? We totally crapped the bed. We played football worse than that FSU fan who threatened to eat his dog's turd does social media. Yes, I remember that now. Oh, how the world's changed since then. Greg Berhalter has dazzled the world with his last bounce pass from a US sideline, and we are poised to be, this is not fan fiction, this is happening. We're about to become Mauricio Pochettino's US men's national team. Are you keeping up at home? Oh, and to break all of this down, and then some, it's a joy to welcome, the king of CONCACAF, host of Football Americas on ESPN+, ESPN, the home of La Liga and Bundesliga. It's former US men's national team star, Jen, who also played in Canada, note, host of Vamos on the Men in Blazers media network. Also my friend, it's Mr. Hercules Gomez.
This is why I come on. The best intros in the game. I don't care what type of business you're in, what type of sport, the best intros, Roger Bennett. I miss those. I tell you what, this is why when I was a player, they were like, hey, we got this Men in Blazers thing. Yeah, I'll do it. This is where you get treated right.
Can you not tell? I'm quite excited at the moment. These are insane days we're living, aren't they?
It's crazy because I was having a back and forth on Twitter a little while ago and reminiscing the days of Jurgen Klinsmann and how crazy that was. I don't think this generation realizes where the national team in the program is today and how far you've come. We had one reporter maybe hounding us, if you will, back then. Now you're going to have a crazy amount of attention, and not just U.S. attention.
Oh, Herc. And we're doing this at a time when the US men's national team played Canada Saturday afternoon, an epic battle. But when it was announced, we were promised the spectre of Jesse Marsch, a man who's made little secret of the fact that he felt the US men's national team job was his post-World Cup 2022 against Greg Berhalter, the man who was, in fact, rehired in his stead. This promised to be, and I don't like to be hyperbolic, Neo versus Agent Smith, Thor versus Loki, Katie Heron versus Regina George. Herc, have we been deprived of the grudgiest grudge match of all time?
You brought up Jesse Marsch. He's never just publicly said, that job was mine. They promised it to me and they took it away. But I get that feeling. This is my personal opinion. There was some sort of agreement, gentleman's handshake, whatever the case may be. And Jesse Marsch thought that job was his. He thought it was in the bag. And then the rug was pulled beneath him. Jesse Marsch isn't the type to just let things go. You can see it in the way he's expressed himself. You can see it in the way his agent expresses himself about the situation. There's certainly no love lost there when it comes to the U.S. men's national team program and Jesse Marsch. Jesse Marsch may be American by birth, but we saw it at Copa America. He's going to be singing that anthem, and he's going to want nothing more than to absolutely murder, absolutely destroy the U.S. men's national team.
There's an interview I did with Jesse, which just went up on our YouTube page. I was like, Jesse, respect. You learned that anthem pretty quickly. I was like, serious question. How did you learn that anthem so quickly? Did you have like an anthem tutor? And he's like, no, I learned it actually in French when I was the head coach of Montreal. Did you learn the Canadian anthem when you were at Toronto, Herc?
Not all of it. I'll tell you what, to his credit, it's one of the most beautiful anthems in the world. It's in my top 5.
What's number 1?
The American anthem is very iconic. I put Mexico in there. I would put, who else? Is it Italy that's really cool?
Italy's amazing. The other end of the spectrum, Japan's is like stunningly floating. It's just like mist on a beautiful lake. And then the anthem just stops in the middle. It is haunting and it leaves you wanting more. And before we go any further, you're listening to Today in Anthem Talk. This interview special brought to you by our good friends at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Play $5, get $50 instantly when you use code MIB. As I said up top, Mauricio Pochettino is coming into our loving arms. The announcement of the culture-building Argentinian who's coached Southampton, Tottenham, Chelsea, and PSG also in there is about to ride with us The announcement reported to be imminent. What is it, 3 weeks since news crackled that this was all about to go down, and negotiations with his most recent employer, Chelsea, over the financial settlement have stalled the announcement. We will talk more about Poch in this show, but I do want to get a temperature check up top. How big a deal is it for the United States? To me, Pochettino is clear the single most accomplished club coach ever to agree to lead us. You played for the US men's national team under a number of managers. What do you think the players are experiencing right now as they wait that official announcement?
These players, from their footballing birth, they've known one coach, really, and that's Greg Berhalter. And Greg Berhalter, for better or worse, has let them do as they pleased. And oftentimes that's created a very unique culture where they've taken ownership of that team, but not accountability. And I say this with the utmost respect to what they've done, but you can see actions in how they've expressed themselves to the media, indiscipline within that group. Greg Berhalter's been that father figure for them, but a different type of father figure, maybe not the disciplinarian. And he lacked credibility to the rest of the world. The rest of the world saw the U.S. men's national team the way they've always seen the U.S. men's national team. Well, now you're in a different arena. You have somebody that brings instant credibility. You're at the big boys table. That's who you have today. You command immediate respect. So if you're these players, I think the hairs on the back of my neck are tingling. They're up with excitement at the possibilities of what you can do under this tactician, but also now you're going to be held accountable in a way that you've never been held accountable before.
God, do you really think of Greg Berhalter as like the dad? Think about him more like, as the young uncle. Uncle Rico in Napoleon Dynamite. It'd be...
My young uncle was a Full House uncle, John Stamos, Uncle Jesse. So these kids now are going to go to Uncle Rico. That's the goofy one. That's I could have thrown a football across those mountains, Uncle.
Somewhere in between those two uncles, that's what we had, and more Poch Watch to come in just one moment. But let's talk about the game ahead. United States, Canada. I do think the biggest storyline in this one is, as we discussed, Jesse Marsch, looking like a Wisconsin Liam Neeson in Taken 1, 2, and 3, out for revenge. He's gotten his Canadian team firing at the Copa in terms of the result. Told me when I filmed with him ahead of the game that leading this young group of Canuck young guns has restored, quote, his love of football again. Jesse, can you talk about what's going through his mind in this one, what he has to prove? This is far more than a game of football for him, right?
It's always been far more than just a game for him. To give you a little snapshot of who Jesse Marsch is, I remember playing in Major League Soccer back in 2005. 2006, those early days, I'm playing with the LA Galaxy. I'm a young guy who lives in Los Angeles. In the off seasons, Raj, I don't remember if you recall those off seasons. They felt like they were 3 months long, a lot of vacation time. So a lot of the guys were around Major League Soccer and some of the top collegiate, players in the nation. And we would do pickup games. And these are a bunch of kids, like 25 years of age or younger, a few older guys every once in a while who would play these pickup games. We're talking about bringing big goals in and playing 7v7 or whatnot. Jesse Marsch comes one day after us doing this for a week, and all of a sudden, no. And he's running a training session. This is a player for Chivas USA running an actual session, coaching you. And you're like looking around like, what's going on here? I knew exactly from that moment he would be a coach. I knew exactly that moment without being his teammate, just how disciplined and how fierce of a competitor and winner this guy was. I could only imagine what's going through his head. The only thing I can think of is revenge, is humiliation. I really think Jesse Marsch wants to humiliate the U.S. men's national team. Not because he has a hatred for the country or anything like that, but because he wants to prove you made the wrong decision. I was that guy. I was your guy.
God, Jesse wants to thump the United States and walk away Saturday like Tyrion Lannister, bellowing, "A day will come when you think yourself safe and happy, and suddenly your joy will turn to ashes in your mouth, and you'll know the debt is paid." And he'll be screaming that at an interim manager. The US will be led by Mikey Varas, who coaches the under-20 national team. He selected this roster, planned the camp. The gent is from the Berhalter coaching tree. Tell us what it feels like for the United States players in this moment, in that squad, in transition, poised between Berhalter and Pochettino. And what, if anything, Varas has to prove or gain in this window?
Gain is credibility for Mikey Varas. He's pretty much locked up, I believe, with San Diego FC. He will be their first coach in their history. There are a lot of people who are not sold on this coaching tree or coaching association for Greg Berhalter. We can go down the list of managers that he's had at some point in time, either under him that he's influenced or given an opportunity and work with them, from Anthony Hudson to BJ Callahan to Luchi Gonzalez, Nico Stevez at FC Dallas. He was just let go, to now Mikey Varas. There's an accumulation of coaches that he's had under him at some point in time. And I don't want to say that it's not gone well, but that's been sort of the case. So Mikey Varas will have that stigma on him, not only in San Diego, but here with these players. For these players, business as usual. They've been through this. You know, we remember Anthony Hudson coaching the team against Oman. We remember BJ, Callahan winning a Nations League with this team. Very good Nations League where they, humiliated Mexico, and that was Diego Coca's last stand for the Mexican national team, and then, beat Canada. These players know what to do at this level. I don't think they expect it to be different at this level.
When you think about it, they've actually had so many different faces lead this team. The United States squad is youthful. Oh, babies, 13 players, 23 or under. A lot of regular faces missing now. Christian Pulisic, our headliner, will be there, a gent whose form, even on an underperforming early season AC Milan, has been quite sizzling. But a bunch of familiar friends not with us. Tim Weah, Serginho Dest, Tyler Adams out because of injuries. Tyler will actually be joining me live at the final whistle after the game on Saturday on YouTube. Come and join us. Weston McKennie also out. He's got to catch up his match fitness. He had a late start to pre-season. A belated signing with Juventus will do that to you. Anthony Robinson also out. That fine gent, been playing injured. 2 minor surgeries sprinkled in the past year. He needs and deserves a break. So this Herc is going to be a window of opportunity for players like Gio Reyna, gent who's struggled with form and minutes, now back at Dortmund at 21 years old, hoping already for a redemption season. 23-year-old Brendan Aronson, who's turned the Leeds fans' frowns upside down. Trust me, that's hard to do. With some real tenacious performances. I admire him so greatly. And Matt Turner, my lord, falling down the depth chart at Nottingham Forest, where he hasn't had a start, I think, since February in the FA Cup, and now joining Crystal Palace as a backup. Of the big-name players, who do you think needs to have the biggest, bestest camp and white?
Josh Sargent. This 9 battle is intriguing to me. I've always maintained that Josh Sargent is the most talented striker, talented 9 of this pool. If Josh Sargent can't get on the field, I can't defend him. The last time Josh Sargent played for the U.S. men's national team was in Qatar. Since then, he's been on a tear for Norwich. This guy cannot stop scoring goals every single season, and then he gets hurt. Every single season, he gets called up, and then he can't go to the U.S. men's national team. And in that time, Folarin Balogun has been struggling. Ricardo Pepi can't get on the field, and it should be wide open for Josh Sargent. And then good old Haji Wright's nipping at his heels. Good old Haji Wright does score goals at the club level. Good old Haji Wright is called up for the U.S. men's national team. Late, a health scratch for Josh Sargent shows up, already going on vacation, shows up, saves the U.S. men's national team against Jamaica, and scoring goals. So Josh Sargent, for as talented as he is, and I still firmly believe he is the most talented striker they have, left foot, right foot, heading ability, in space, hold-up play, intelligence, all these things I am saying about him that go in his favor. We need to see it with the U.S. men's national team because we've not seen it for 2 years. So how can I defend him?
God, I'm just listening to you. I'm remembering Jurgen Klinsmann when he was at Tottenham, played under a once great player turned manager, the Argentinian Osvaldo Ardiles, and he experimented with playing a front 5 that season. And when I interviewed Jurgen Klinsmann about it, Jurgen scored a ton of goals in that crazy system. Jurgen shouted, and it almost worked. So Mikey Varas, if you're listening to this, front 5, baby, don't choose one. Play them all. Play 'em all, baby. And by all, let's go a little deeper, because below the waterline, there's a ton of fascinating texture to this United States squad. New faces, latest in our greatest, next big thing. Aidan Morris, the midfielder, who just leapt from the Columbus Crew to Middlesbrough in the English Championship, where he has been electric. Finally, defender Austin Trusty getting a chance to add to his paltry cap count after his Premier League season with Sheffield United. He's now at Celtic. 13 of the call-ups are below the age of 23. The average roster age is, I think, 24 and a half, and that includes 87-year-old Tim Ream. The baby of the squad, also fascinating, goalkeeper Diego Cochin, 18, from Florida. Plays for FC Barcelona's second team. Could play for Peru or Venezuela too. He and defender Marlon Fossey, who was born in the United States, moved to England aged 11 to sharpen his game. Now plays for Standard Liège, are possible debutants. Herc, when you go deeper in this squad, which one player from that supporting cast are you most excited to see break through?
I'm so intrigued by Marlon Fossey because I'm thinking down the road. Marlon Fossey's got a great story. LA kid. He's born in LA, goes to England. I think we used to that when he's 11 years old, plays in Fulham Academy, has a rough go in the lower tiers in England. Injury after injury. And he's a bit of a late bloomer. He's 25 years of age. And in a league that develops and exports, he's breaking out in Belgium, Standard Liège. And he's doing well. And if you look at Serginho Dest, we don't know what Serginho Dest is going to be like post-injury. Hopefully he's fine. Hopefully he's back to Serginho Dest ways in a good way. Hopefully he could be that solution for you at the right back. And Joe Scally was one of the winners, absolute winners this summer for the U.S. men's national team. But I think the U.S. men's national team has realized if something happens, there's a massive drop-off from Joe Scally to the next. I think they're looking who could be that serviceable player as a right back. So Marlon Fossey here has a massive opportunity to say, hey, I could be that guy. Hey, let me compete. And then better his situation in the U.S. men's national team program and his situation at the club level.
God bless. Welcome, Marlon Fossey. That story of just commitment, tenacity, the Fulham, the drop-off and grinding his way back again is just one of real self-sacrifice and wonder. Godspeed to you. But to our opponents in this game, and before we go all Tim Hortons on your ass, do want to remind you, Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, over 5 million active members. I play because it's easy, and it's the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends. Become part of that Prize Picks community today. It's available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, Georgia. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Turn $10 into $1,000 on Prize Picks. And now to the Canadian team. What do you make of it? From what you've seen at the Copa, you can make the case they were semi-finalists, and that outcome is all you need to know about knockout football. But you can also point to how hard they found it to score goals, reliance on penalty shootouts. I think they're self-admittedly very much a work in progress. Jesse Marsch himself still working out the differences between club football, the world he knows, and international football, the world he is learning. What do you make of the impact Jesse Marsch has had on the Canadian squad as we know it?
I was already very fond of this Canadian squad. Truth be told, from the John Herdman days. I loved what John Herdman did with them. I love the culture he brought to this team. Albeit legally or illegally, he brought a good culture to the team. That said, this is a different team. And you can tell it's different because Jesse Marsch holds no loyalties on this team. I thought John Herdman relied on some of those veteran players that were getting a little long on the tooth and maybe should have been sent to greener pastures a little earlier. That's not been the case with Jesse Marsch. Jesse Marsch comes in, he says, Moises Bombito, I'm giving you a chance to play. You're going to be one of our main guys at the back. And Moises Bombito has parlayed that into a big move, into a top 5 league in Europe. Ismael Kone, I'm going to give you a chance to play. He's been stellar. He's been fantastic as advertised. And then just the way Jesse has given this team certain liberties when it comes to attacking and how they attack. I mean, I know they didn't score a bunch of goals, but Jacob Schaffelberg was one of the best players in Copa America. And this guy started, half the games? He played half the minutes available to him. But when he was on the field, you saw the intentions of not only this player, but the Canadian national team. I recall the very first game against Argentina. They made it very interesting against Argentina for as long as they could. And that means under a new system, because I believe they had 2 games under Jesse Marsch. They had a game against the Netherlands that they got smashed. It was 4-0, 4-5-0.
How many American fans laughed in that moment?
That's right. And then what happened after when they played France? So they were somewhere in the middle of learning this new system with Jesse Marsch, who's high octane. And you have to be physically capable of putting in a shift. So for about 55 minutes, they were physically capable against Argentina on a terrible field that didn't do well or wasn't conducive for either team. And then it went awry. Argentina's Argentina, the individual quality showed, and they ended up winning the game 2-0. But that's when they came to play at Copa America and announce themselves to the world. I like this team. I really do. And I like him under Jesse Marsch because he's given them the discipline, the belief, and just a different element of physicality that they had before in spurts, but now I know they're not scoring a lot of goals in Copa America, but you got to give some of those opponents a lot of credit. Argentina twice, Chile, Peru, Venezuela, who was a very difficult opponent in this tournament. They played against some good teams.
And they are a good team themselves, which, by the way, is great for the United States. It's what we bloody need. I mean, this CONCACAF reality. Aguirre back at Mexico. It's great for the United States. Having, please God, Steve McLaren in Jamaica and trying to recruit dual nationals there. All of it. The sharper we can get in CONCACAF, the sharper we can become ourselves. Steel, sharp and still. I believe all of this is great, even to our own self-interest. Interesting storyline for our Canadian cousins. Jesse's actually begun to aggressively recruit dual nationals. He talked about it on our interview. 2 in the squad for the first time, Canadian-Croatian Nico Seagour and Stephen Afria, who was eligible for Ghana. Also Seagour, 20-year-old Burnaby, British Columbia-born defensive midfielder, plays for Hajduk Split in Croatia. Afria, 23-year-old forward on Sporting Kansas City, drafted in 2023 from Florida International University. Go Panthers. This is the kind of energy Jesse's bringing. Herc, what kind of game do you imagine we're going to get on Saturday afternoon? Tell us what's going to go down and a final score prediction, please.
With fans knowing there's no Pochettino, still no announcement, it's Mike Ivares, and they're going to play against Canada, which is an exciting team. If you follow CONCACAF football, and the Canadian national team, you could say, hey, up and coming, I really like what I'm seeing, but by no means a team that's going to be a huge draw. And the U.S. men's national team has struggled to be a draw itself at times here in the U.S., so you're not going to have a massive fanfare, massive fan support. I don't know what kind of lineups we're going to get. The big dogs are missing. A great chance for some of these players. Big moments. I'm actually leaning to about a 1-1 draw here. I think we're going to see somewhat of a gritty, physical stalemate, a battle where it's not too pleasing on the eye. It's more rolling up the sleeves. And I think we're going to get a 1-1 draw.
I think it is going to be hot. I've got to believe, though, our boys are going to play out their skins, not for Varas, but for the watching from afar Pochettino. I predict a 2-1 scoreline, and that, my friends, is called a pivot, because, Herc, it's time to talk about Poch. And first of all, before we dive in, we need to read the legal caveat. No manager is a guaranteed slam dunk winner. They have to fit in with the culture of the team. But can we agree? Do you agree? US Soccer have taken some real crap over the past 7 years since they failed to qualify for the World Cup 2018. There's been so much doubt swirling on social media over the past couple of months around this process. And for the United States to come out ultimately with Mauricio Pochettino as our manager, a really respected club manager, a really lovely human being, a gent with options, as you highlighted earlier, at the elite level. This is just straight up, this is a real coup, right, Herc?
It's incredible. I've been very critical of the U.S. soccer program in their handling of many things. And I was screaming at the top of my lungs, you reset the market on the women's side. And you made Emma Hayes the best paid women's coach in the game. You went for the best possible manager you could realistically get? What about the men's side? And I could have never fathomed that it would be a Mauricio Pochettino, regardless of the ties. You know, you've documented very well that Matt Crocker and Pochettino knew each other from Southampton. I still didn't think that was a possibility. I still never thought Mauricio Pochettino would be convinced and say, you know what? I see something here. I like this raw material. I can do something like I did at Spurs. I can make this a winner. I can make this something for people and fans to be proud of. And the U.S. men's national team program went out and got the best possible candidate they could. I don't think anybody can make an argument that there's a better candidate today in name, maybe in style, et cetera, for the U.S. men's national team. It really was reaching for the stars, and you got one.
I spoke to an English journalist yesterday, and he said over there in Britain, it feels like Pochettino to the US men's national team is as startling to all of them in their newsrooms as Victor Osimhen joining Galatasaray, which honestly, I think is a bit harsh because to me, there's so much upside about this American job. I've said this from the very beginning. It's a free hit. We don't have to qualify. Now inheriting halfway through, if Poch doesn't do well, no harm, no foul to his reputation. But the commercial upside, if he does well, and by the way, to do well, I just mean if he gets into the round of 16, millions of dollars of commercial possibilities are within touching distance. And the fun of leading the United States in a home World Cup, in our footballing culture, where I've got to say, there's zero pressure here. Zero compared to the toxic buzzsaw that, say, the English national team job that Poch was also linked to. This is a joy. But let's blow through some of the nuances of this Pochettino hire. He's a culture builder, developer of youth. That's his style. A Bielsa disciple. First of all, I had the magical Anthony Robinson on this show the week before last, and you can find him talking on our YouTube page. He's always really quite honest, very reflective. And he said, what this squad needs is someone who will, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, he said, someone who will crack the players' behinds. A tough coach who'll call the shots, make the decisions needed to take this team next level, which is clear as day. But it does also imply that in the Berhalter era, there was too much comfort. At best comfort, maybe player power at worst, but it was a lukewarm bath culture.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, Raj, your interviews have been sending the U.S. men's national fan base into a frenzy. Anthony Robinson saying they need somebody to crack the whip. Tyler Adams on The Captain with you, talking about the next manager and what kind of personality he should embody or characteristics he should have. And these players are crying out for somebody to come in and hold them accountable. The own players are saying this. So when the players are telling you this, I don't need to tell you what I think of how lax it was with Greg Berhalter. For right or wrong, there are a lot of good things that Greg Berhalter did in this program. There are many. Trust me, there are many. But when it comes to this, I think the players themselves want to be held accountable. I believe Pochettino will. There was a great article in The Athletic about Mauricio Pochettino's hiring about maybe a week ago, 10 days ago. Pablo Maurer wrote it, if I'm not mistaken. And he's got a mantra about his lemons and how the lemons, bring in good vibes. They suck out the bad.
A bowl of lemons in every office that he's ever
in every
been.
office. Yeah. So he's very superstitious. He's very set in his ways. He's very much about building a culture. And I've been in many cultures, and the cultures that work, you hold each other accountable. You have to maintain a level of respect and accountability within. I think we're going to get that immediately. Who is left standing will be the interesting thing here. Because with Greg Berhalter, there was players we thought would have been left standing and weren't. John Anthony Brooks, I could have bet the house would have been at the World Cup in Qatar when this first started. How could you not take a guy with World Cup experience, a center back who plays in the Bundesliga, at one point the highest CONCACAF transfer, and he wasn't. He didn't survive, and there were players like him that didn't survive under Greg Berhalter. The same's going to happen with Pochettino.
I mean, that idea, I was speaking to a lot of players and a lot of agents who were like always surprised that playing time be damned. It was the same regulars. The places were a given, and that did translate through to a sense of entitlement and complacency. By the way, there's a quick aside here, but it is something that needs to be said, because when the players do speak now about wanting discipline, wanting structure, wanting that kind of leadership, there's often an element of fan anger. The fact that you didn't come out and say that during the Berhalter era, to critique their coach like the fans were critiquing their coach. And I think it's really important to say, as we reflect back on this period, I do think that's fairly unfair to the players.
Of course.
These young players, none of them, we see Kevin De Bruyne often lash out at the Belgian FA. He's Kevin the bloody Bruyne. He's got leverage. He's got standing. He can stand up and say, this is terrible, this is not okay, at will, because he is KD bloody B. Our players are not going to come out and lambast the coach while he's the coach. They'd seen Zach Steffen, 1 minute the starter, the next minute utterly exiled with no real explanation. You've been in locker rooms, Herc. To expect the players to speak like Twitter keyboard warriors, it's never going to happen.
Never. It doesn't happen in real life. We all complain about our bosses, right? Who complains to their boss about them, the boss? Nobody. Why? Because you'd be an idiot to do it. Who's going to shoot themselves in the foot like that? Nobody. So always take these things with a grain of salt. When they're said, at the times they're said for a reason. If Tyler Adams, Anthony Robinson, Tim Howard, who never said anything about Jurgen Klinsmann, and now goes off and writes for the Telegraph about Jurgen Klinsmann. He didn't say it back then. Why? Because Jurgen Klinsmann was his boss. Nobody would intentionally harm or hurt the circumstances of them being on the field or anything to jeopardize them staying on the field. So I don't understand this hatred towards these players. We want players to be honest. Sure, absolutely. But we don't expect them to be dumb. We understand that everybody has somebody they have to report to, and it would just be idiotic of these players to hurt their chances in any way.
And God bless, back to Poch. And one question I want to ask you, it's an old US soccer, almost an argument is that the United States player has a unique mentality. It's different to the European mentality. And the US coach needs to understand that difference. In a way, say, Bruce Arena did, and Jurgen Klinsmann is judged not to have done. I remember when Clint Dempsey signed for Tottenham, very proud day. Jurgen immediately went to the Wall Street Journal, and his quote was, "Clint Dempsey has done shit." I think his quote was, "There's always another level." That's very Jurgen, but it really stuck in the craw of many of the American players. How much do you think that still matters now that so many of them do play in Europe? Is there still a real unique culture? I think there is. The gents do talk about the Band of Brothers culture. Will Poch understand it? Does it matter?
It's funny you bring this up. I heard an interview or part of an interview that Landon Donovan did with Alexi Lalas on Alexi's podcast. And Landon was talking about he hosts Pochettino comes in and he understands the player and their culture and tries to really, really embrace it. I don't care. I want a coach who's going to make these players winners. My generation is much different than this generation. This generation, whether they've got to be coddled, whether they've got to be spoken to in a different manner, in a manner that I wasn't spoken to. There was, when I was growing up in my teenage years or my early 20s, no social media. So you didn't have these distractions. You didn't have, for right or wrong, a more PR type of playing environment like you have now. There are different ways of speaking to these players. I want them to win. I want these players to win. I don't care if Mauricio Pochettino sits, with Weston McKennie and talks music. I don't care if he sits with Tyler Adams and talks about his family. I want Mauricio Pochettino to get the best out of Tyler Adams, to get the best out of Weston McKennie, to get the best out of Christian Pulisic, to take them to a totally different level. There's a player in this group, if we're going off Pochettino and what he's done, who is going to be Dele Alli. Who's going to be that player? Who's going to be the guy that comes out of nowhere? Who's going to be that guy who has his moment? There's going to be a Son. There's going to be a Harry Kane. Who's going to take those mantles? Because he helped mold these players. So who is it going to be? I don't for one second think that because he doesn't know the culture or where they're from that he can't reach these players. Look at the players I just mentioned. You think he knows where they're from or their culture? This is about winning and professionalism. So I really hope these players take that.
Nothing more American than winning. Quick one though, what about the worry that the gent's a club coach, never managed at international level, won't have his players for a month of pre-season, won't have them every day on the training ground to drill them? In your experience, that learning curve for him to teach a team in 2 or 3 training sessions at a time, little bites, how much of a leap will it be?
Massive leap. I'd be more worried if he wasn't so much a good man manager. And we've heard good man managing stories about Pochettino. I'd be more worried if it was a Thomas Tuchel, to be honest, where it's much more cold, the day-to-day interaction with the players. That's where
Cristiano, you are dropped.
That's where I would be worried. But I'm not too worried about Pochettino. Listen, these players have played for some unbelievable coaches. Serginho Dest played for Xavi, played for Ronald Koeman. Weston has played for Maxi Allegri. Christian has played for, we can go down the list of coaches Christian has played for. Jurgen Klopp, Frank Lampard, Graham Potter, Thomas Tuchel, Julian Nagelsmann for Tyler Adams. We can go down a massive list of good coaches these players have played for. Good coaches. Matt Turner for Arteta. You're not going to reinvent the wheel with these players. These players have been there, but you got to make sure these players understand what it's about in the brief time they are there. I'll lean on his man management. I'll lean on the tactician that he is to get players to buy in, because it's about buying into the tactic, not learning the tactic.
One strength Pochettino has that's not been talked about enough. Gent's a Spanish speaker first. And that's one of the first things I thought of when I heard about his appointment. What a game changer for US soccer. The ability to speak directly to the hearts and minds of the vast, passionate Hispanic community in our nation. Can you talk about that, Herc? Even if he lives in Europe and doesn't relocate to the United States, it's an enormous moment for this United States men's national team program to have a leader, a figurehead who is Spanish speaking.
Raj, I'm old enough to remember when the U.S. men's national team in the States for the Spanish-speaking audience was referred to by the U.S. soccer program, el equipo de todos, everybody's team. I'm old enough to remember that. It's been some time since you've gotten to this audience. I can't tell you from playing in my Liga MX years how still remembered I am anywhere I go where there's Spanish speakers, and they all identify me as, you're like my son, you're like my daughter. They have an affinity to the country. They have an affinity to the program. In some way, the U.S. is their second team, but it doesn't resonate with them because you don't speak to them in the way that resonates to them. Now you have somebody in their tongue, their language, who is charismatic. We're not talking about a coach who doesn't want to do TV, who doesn't want to do interviews, who doesn't know how to speak to an audience. Mauricio Pochettino. He's done it in multiple languages, in multiple cultures, in multiple countries. It's the first time in my recent history that the U.S. men's national team and U.S. soccer have a distinct opportunity to get to a Spanish-speaking audience.
At an incredible time of growth and wonder. Godspeed. I could not be more excited. I do wonder, I think this is key, the assistant manager he brings on who adds to his team, the understanding of the US team. If I were Poch, I'd bring in like a Tim Howard, say, as close to an American icon as there can be, who can be that American eyes and ears alongside his devoted and quite brilliant number 2, Jesus Perez. If you were advising Poch on the one thing he needs to understand about who we are and why we are different, what would you say, Herc? The floor's yours.
I'm sorry, I got a quick glimpse of Clint Dempsey, like, you don't know me, dog. In an argument with Pochettino during a coaching session.
Poch just looking on, just being like, thinking about his lemons in his office. You're like, okay, yeah.
I don't want to get too far in the weeds and talking about like politics and what things have been said or reported on, how MLS has come into the U.S. soccer program and the coach needs to understand the landscape of Major League Soccer. I hope that's not the case. I want him to understand that not all players are created equal. They're all equal in who they are, but they're not created equal. There are different pathways for the American to get to the top. And understanding those pathways helps you understand the player and how you get the best out of said player. So the same experience for a Mexican-American kid like Ricardo Pepi isn't the same experience for a Tim Ream, who went to school, who was in the super draft, who played for the New York Red Bulls, then went to the Premier League. These are different players. So understanding the pathways, I think, will be different and necessary for Pochettino.
God bless. That's beautifully said. I just realized who the assistant manager he needs should be.
Tim Ream.
Kyle Beckerman.
Oh, he's coaching I believe he's coaching in Utah right now.
Get
soccer.
Kyle bloody Beckerman. Our nation needs to send out the Kyle Beckerman bat signal now more than ever. God bless to you. We are living in magnificent days in the United States in terms of footballing reality. Emma Hayes leads our women's team. Mauricio Pochettino is about to lead our men. Perhaps even more impressive, David Beckham was on Hot Ones this week.
Saw that.
And he said at some point that the United States will win the World Cup. Was it just that bomb hot sauce talking, Herc? And will we win that thing in our lifetime?
In my lifetime or yours?
In Tim Ream's lifetime, because he's going to live forever.
I've seen this program grow so much from the mid-90s when it wasn't a program. It was a residency program, and they were handing out about 100 caps appearances in 2 years. And they were traveling, playing club soccer against club soccer teams to 2010 project, which I was part of. My generation was supposed to win the World Cup in 2010. I was at the World Cup in 2010. I can tell you we did not win the World Cup in 2010. To this new age program after the 2018 World Cup failure, and to see where it started and where it is now in terms of resources and personnel, where these players are at, I have to think it's a realistic possibility. I really do. The resources alone make it a possibility. And David Beckham, I saw that interview on Hot Ones. I love Hot Ones. Great show. And what he is talking about is the inspiring of a generation. You talk to these players, Matt Turner will tell you he saw the 2010 World Cup and it changed him. I saw the 2002 World Cup and it changed me. Landon Donovan, DeMarcus Beasley were teenagers playing in that World Cup. And I'm a teenager watching at home. And I'm like, damn, I want that. I want to be there. So I can guarantee you the inspiration he is talking about will lead with the resources you have to one day, yes, be a contender. Yes, one day that could be a distinct possibility. I just don't know how far we are from that day.
God bless her. To paraphrase what Herc just said, it's our children's children who will get to watch the United States win the World Cup, and Tim Ream will still be playing. Herc, you beauty, it is a joy to be with you. Listen to Herc on ESPN Plus, on Football Americas, and also on the Men in Blazers network, where he's the host of Vamos. He's doing the Lord's work. I'll be back at the final whistle on Saturday after the Canada game. Tyler Adams will be live with me on YouTube. Do not miss that. Subscribe to Men in Blazers YouTube page. Set notifications to on so you get the old signal. Oh, Herc, thank you, you beautiful human being.
Anytime, Raj. I love you. Appreciate it.
This is Rog, sending you big love. Go, go USA, and courage.